I think it's extremely important to look at what's happening in the world right now, because you had Biden going to Israel, going to Saudi Arabia, and at the same time, practically at the same time, you have Putin, the Russian president, you have Erdogan, the Turkish president, going to meet with Iran in Tehran. You're seeing a tectonic shift, new alliances being forged, new consequences, a new reality emerging from what happened in Ukraine, the start of this war. It's really spurred on innumerable consequences in terms of international relations. So that's why it's really important we look at Biden's what business he got up to there, and we look at what happened with this Tehran summit. It's very important, very big. Now, who attended the summit? Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, and also Turkey's president, Erdogan. And they said that the top issue, or one of the top issues they want to discuss, is the war in Syria, right? Because all of these countries, Iran, Russia, Turkey, are involved with Syria in one way or another, okay? And here you can see very quickly, this is Raisi, the Iranian president, with Putin and Erdogan. So they said they want to talk about that and some other issues, about grain, I think, as well, in Ukraine and so on. Let me tell you what happened. Just very quickly, just so you can see these clips. That's Raisi, the Iranian president, welcoming Erdogan. Are they sure it's Raisi? I can't see from behind. Oh yeah, there we go. And then, of course, here you have Putin arriving. Look at the title, by the way. Isn't it so funny? The title says, Russia's President Putin looks shaky as he lands in Tehran. What does that mean? He looked shaky. I defended Biden getting off that plane, okay? So I'm doing both now. Here is what happened. There's a very interesting article that I want to read some bits to you about. Without me even going any further, it's important. It's important because you have Iran, you have Russia, you have Turkey. All these international regional powers getting together. And you don't see that too often. This is from Arab News, okay? And the headline says, Turkey returns empty-handed from Tehran summit. There's the lovely photo I showed you. The 7th trilateral summit in the quote-unquote Astana format between Turkey, Russia, and Iran was held last Tuesday in Tehran, where the situation in Syria was reviewed, right? So that's the main issue. As announced beforehand, bilateral meetings were also held between the leaders. So, again, not only did they meet in a group of 3, but they also met on the sides with each other. Now, Turkish President Erdogan declared intention to carry out a military operation in Syria. That's one of the other top issues that they discussed, because, Erdogan, Turkey, he's saying that he wants to go further into Syria. They're already occupying Idlib and, cutting off the water in Hasaki and so on. And he wants to go in 30 kilometers deep to make a safe zone. So he's persistent, right? He's adamant, and he won't let this go. Even the United States is opposed to that. So it's not just, about Syria, Iran, and Turkey being opposed to that. Even the US, which is its NATO ally, okay? And they have this issue, of purchasing 40 new F-16 fighter aircraft, with 80 of them already in the Turkish Air Force infantry. So they have many, many things the Americans and Turks are discussing. I love this sentence here. They say, when 3 such important actors, plus Syria, like as if Syria is not an important actor. What do you mean? It's literally in Syria. Anyway, when 3 such important actors plus Syria are opposed, the operation, even if it's eventually carried out, is likely to become a symbolic move to give the impression to the people at home in Turkey that the government has fulfilled its promise. So they say Erdogan did his best to explain his case at the Tehran summit, right? He pointed out that there was a consensus in 2019 to establish on the Syrian side of the border a 30 to 40 kilometer corridor, which would be exclusively patrolled by Turkish soldiers to ward off terrorist attacks in Turkey. However, the project never materialized. And so Turkey was expecting support from Russia and Iran, partly from the US, to clear the areas controlled by Kurdish fighters. So, just to explain this to you, Turkey, Erdogan, or let's focus on Erdogan right now. He is telling the Syrians, he's telling Iran and telling Russia, telling the US, you guys need to let me go in Syria and invade more land because these terrorists are there. And who is he talking about when he says terrorists? For him, the Kurds are the terrorists, right? So he says the YPG, which is inside Syria, is affiliated to the PKK in Turkey, and so therefore it's also an extension of the PKK. It's a terrorist organization as well. And I find this very funny because he's talking about terrorists. He's protecting people from Al-Qaeda, right? Every time an ISIS leader is killed by the Americans and assassinated, where do they get them? Both times, it was Idlib. And that's where Turkey is. And that's where Turkey has these forces that it's supporting, which are Al-Qaeda. So I find this very funny that he's the gall to talk about terrorism. But okay, take a look at this. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was the first to say to Erdogan that not only the PKK and PYD terrorists, but the militants protected by Turkey had to be eliminated as well. Raisi went one step further and said that all foreign forces should leave Syria, meaning Turkish and American forces, and Turkey-supported militants, because unlike Russia and Iran, they had not been invited to Syria by the legitimate government of the country, right? So that's a very, very important point, because if we want to talk about foreign forces inside Syria, well, trust me, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them, right? But who's occupying the oil fields in Syria? It's the United States, and they're helping the SDF to do it. And who's occupying Idlib? It's Turkey. Did Syria invite the United States to come and take its oil? I'm not even saying that, like, again, for some of you, you might be new, you might be thinking, well, I'm just saying that they're stealing the oil. No, man, there's tons of videos, we watched them a million times. They're just like racing out with these oil tankers. They're just stealing it out in the open. No shame. So did Syria invite the US to come and occupy its oil fields and steal its wealth? No. Did Syria invite Turkey to create a safe zone, or to occupy Idlib, or to boost and support terrorists, militias, whatever? No. So you can't compare that to Iran and Russia. And I am sure that Iran and Russia will leave as soon as the war is done. This goes back to 1973, so very long time, right? Over 50 years, the Russians, they have a naval base in Tartus. That's something else. That's a very old agreement. But generally speaking, I am certain that once the war is over, they will leave. The only reason that they're there, the only purpose they serve, is to help the Syrian government and the Syrian people not to be invaded by Al-Qaeda terrorists, not to lose their wealth, and so on. You get rid of the threat, they're going to go home. That's it. End of story. Now, here, let's continue with the article, and let's talk about the summit. To what extent these remarks affected Erdogan's attitude is difficult to tell, but his body language said more than the statement that he delivered at the plenary. At no stage during the summit did Erdogan look relieved. On his way back from Tehran, he told reporters in the presidential plane that Putin and Raisi had different views from that of Turkey on the Syrian question. Putin and Raisi also objected to the construction of houses by Turkey on the Syrian side of the border. Firstly, because it was Syrian territory, and secondly, because the refugees to be returned to Syria should not be forced to settle in an area that is not theirs. Do you see, this is a very important point. This is something that also relates to the Palestinians, because one of the tricks that they used to steal their land was that, well, let's just build you like these tiny concrete things, sanctioned by the UN, like these really tiny huts. They're just concrete huts, and it's just temporary. We promise it's just temporary. We want to put you inside of a structure just temporarily until everything is settled and fixed. 50 years later, they're still there, right? So this is very an important trick to watch out for. And again, most importantly of all, it's not Turkey's business to decide where refugees inside Syria should go. And again, I think we should be very grateful to Turkey for taking in the refugees in the first place, because many countries wouldn't, right? We shouldn't lose sight of that they took in 2 million refugees. At the same time, That also provides Erdogan with a lot of leverage against the EU. It provides them with a workforce. All these people that are coming in, these are families. These are people that are going to go work, they're going to consume. But in any case, I just want to go back to the summit and just kind of give you my commentary as we go along, right? The article says that Russia, Iran, and the Syrian government have already started to strengthen their military presence in areas where Turkey might attempt to carry out an operation. Although not part of the summit agenda, there were other important issues taken up during the bilateral talks between the leaders. So they talked about opening a corridor for the shipment of 1 million tons of Ukrainian grain trapped in besieged Ukrainian harbors. Okay, that was discussed between Erdogan and Putin. And they also resulted in 2 parallel agreements. Okay, so one agreement between Turkey, Ukraine, and the UN, and a second between Turkey, Russia, and the UN. I just kind of wanted to tell you what's going on, because it looks to me that Erdogan had a really rough time there. You look at the things that they told him, Raisi, who's the Iranian president, or you look at what Iran's leader, Ali Khamenei, said. I mean, they gave him a spanking. They gave him a walloping verbally, right? They told him, no, you get out of Syria. It's not about, safe zone and no safe zone and terrorists. You stop supporting terrorists and you get the hell out of Syria. You have no permission to be there. We have permission. It's none of your business. You building houses for refugees, none of your business. Get out. And I gotta say it's nice. I gotta say it's nice, because we need someone, Syrians need someone to defend them, especially in this situation when the whole world is ganged up against us. It's nice to have actors like Iran, like Russia, standing up for Syria, which, Syria that's being kicked while it's down. If I'm not mistaken, right? This is after the summit. He still comes out and says, I'm going to do it. He still comes out and says, I'm going to attack in Syria. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. I might have misread the date on that. But this picture really angered a lot of people over here. Yeah. This picture, because you're seeing Russia, you're seeing Putin meeting with Iran's leader Khamenei and the Iranian president Raisi. It's very powerful. It's a very powerful picture. You have a lot of trolls that are angry about this. This is the new world that we're coming in. The neoconservatives, right? George Bush, his father, Colin Powell, Donald Rumsfeld, all these dirtbags. They came into this millennium saying they want to establish a new world order, and they went out with this crusade, this war on terror, and slaughtered and murdered and displaced millions of people, millions of Arabs, millions of Muslims, just continuing their dirty work from Latin America, all of this on an unbelievable scale, drone striking people, you name it, torturing them, you name it. And they think that they're going to shape the world, right, in their image. I don't know if this new world that we're going to transition into is a good one. I can't tell the future, but this current one is not good. It's untenable. It's really nasty. Again, I saw a video here where they say Putin forced to awkwardly wait for Turkey's President Erdogan. So this is again during the summit, and they say that he had to wait for like a minute or something. Again, this is all part of the body language. This is what I told you. For example, when Biden landed in Saudi Arabia and no one went there, no one came to greet him at the airport, right? No one of similar or comparable stature, right? The president comes, the other president should meet him. Or, the prime minister, at least. No, they sent the governor and some princess. Who is that? I mean, no offense to them, but, the language means a lot, the body language and these signs. And it's kind of funny because, like, we're in a movie or something, Look. Let's all smile for the camera. Just to go back to what I was saying, it's kind of silly in a way. Like, okay, yeah, you had to wait 1 minute. What are you, a child? Like, who cares? No, it's so serious. Oh my God, he's insulting me. We better direct our missiles there. Like, it's wild. This is wild. We gotta move our missiles. And it sounds like something Trump would say. Here you have a headline from France 24, and they basically talked about this statement that was put out, because apparently Iran and Russia and Turkey, they put out a joint statement about fighting terrorism in Syria. And once again, I just find this so funny because the only reason that ISIS is not occupying half the country anymore, it's of course, you have to give credit to the Syrian army, but it's Hezbollah, it's Iran, it's Russia. And the only reason that you don't have a black flag, an ISIS flag over Damascus is, again, it's Hezbollah, Iran, Russia. You don't have to like them, but that's just a reality. So when you're looking at this conflict, who's on this side? Well, I can tell you on Syria's side is very few people, and Turkey is not one of them. Turkey was very much involved in Syria. It's not just occupying Idlib now. A lot of terrorists came through the border between Turkey and Syria. And again, I give credit for taking refugees, and that's a very honorable thing to do. At the same time, though, there are some elements that let these things happen, that let arms and terrorists come through and destroy Syria. And you have Turkish troops occupying Syria. That's not allowed, right? So you're not going to hear that, of course, because right now the focus is Ukraine. But about that statement, I found that kind of funny. Like the guy's harboring, like, what do you mean, man? Fighting terrorists? He should go home and start with himself. Just a last thing to tell you, while this summit was happening, the Syrian foreign minister came to Tehran. Mikdad, that's his surname, right? So he's the foreign minister, the Syrian foreign minister, and he's sitting with the Iranian foreign minister. And this is on July 20th. And they're, of course, discussing what I just told you, what basically took place during the summit. And Damascus said that the Turkish president did not achieve his quote-unquote goals during the summit with Iran and Russia, referring to Erdogan's efforts to rally support for a military operation in Syria. That's true, right? So Erdogan, he's getting no support for this from the United States, his NATO ally. He's getting none from Russia, none from Iran. Everybody's and of course Syria is telling him, go away, don't do this. Don't do that. And the summit didn't help at all. Here they say hours after the summit concluded, like I told you, Mikdad came there himself. I go back to this quote where Khamenei told Erdogan that any Turkish offensive on Syria would be detrimental for the region and called for the issue to be resolved through diplomacy. This is, of course, the safe zone that Erdogan wants, right? He wants to go into Syria and take some more land, and it looks like this, right? So it's this red line that you see, 30 kilometers. And guess what this region is, guys? Guess what region this is in Syria? What do you think is grown here? What do you think is extracted here? Of course, it's wheat, crops, and most importantly, oil. This is the oil region. Now, I don't think Turkey's particularly after the oil or something. They certainly profited from it back when ISIS and these other groups were controlling it. They let the trade go through. That's another thing, for example. But nevertheless, you see why the Americans are occupying this, because they're trying to choke the Syrian government financially, right? It's part of the package of sanctions against Syria.